All right, folks, it is the weather model discussion here for Tuesday, September the 13th, 2022. How's it going? William Cole here in the Storm Studio. Hopefully your Tuesday is going well. And this is kind of our behind the scenes weather segment, right? So we're doing this for our social media, including YouTube. And this is not our normal weather content, right? Just want to make sure no one gets this confused that, of course, if you're looking for the pretty TV maps, the traditional shows, of course, that's available on our channel. But this is just bonus content where we actually go over the raw data, or at least some of the raw data that we look at here in the Storm Studio that helps us put together these daily forecasts. Again, this will not be for everyone, but a lot of folks will kind of like this behind the scenes look at our North Texas forecast. So without further ado, let's go and jump into it. Probably about 10 or 12 minutes typically are how long these are. So what we're looking at here, first of all, this is the visible satellite review, and we use this essentially every day, right? Because we're looking for cloud cover across the area. And today the cloud cover is pretty limited. You see the little white specks, those are fair weather cumulus clouds. They've basically developed during the heating of the day. They're pretty limited because there's not a lot of moisture, right? In order to get these fair weather cumulus clouds to bubble up, it's essentially what you're doing, right? You're taking moisture, you're taking daytime heating, and you're bubbling up some cloud cover, right? So the mid-levels of the atmosphere, they're pretty dry, and we also have an area of high pressure moving through. That is sinking air working against those little updrafts going up. So again, you put all that together, we're talking about really generally sunny conditions out there, and again, mostly clear conditions as we head into the evening and into the overnight. A quick check of radar here. Similar story, no real rain anticipated around the area. Again, the main reason why, that area of high pressure. Anytime we're talking about these ridges, like in the summer when we talk about a summer heat dome, or even in the winter, you can get cool areas of high pressure to build into. Typically it means sunny and it means calm weather, and that is truly what it means today. You can see a little bit of showery activity down around the Houston area, and that's because that's where our front is. In fact, I know this map is a little hard to see, but if you look carefully down along the Gulf Coast, you can see that red and blue line. Red and blue together means a stationary front. That's where the front is stalled. And so behind it, obviously, we're enjoying kind of the drier air, and where you're seeing the green, that's where the dew points are a little bit thicker down there, and that's where the Gulf of Mexico moisture is hanging out near that front. The front is over near the Houston area. That's one of the reasons why they have that opportunity of showers today. You can see the blue H there. That is an area of surface high pressure, right? Not the mid-level that I'm going to show you momentarily. But it's a similar story. Anytime you have the surface areas of high pressure, again, you have sinking air. In this situation, we have clockwise flow around areas of high pressure. So if you look at that little blue H you're seeing right there, clockwise surface flow does back our winds to the southeast. That's one of the reasons why we've gone from a northerly, northeasterly, easterly wind. Today, we now actually have a southeasterly wind. Again, that clockwise flow around that surface area of high pressure. Now, here's the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and we look at this a lot as well. This is where we look for these ridges or areas of high pressure at the mid-levels, or we look for storm troughs and areas of low pressure at the mid-levels. Storm troughs typically bring the active weather. You can see the big storm trough up there in the northeast today. There will be an opportunity from New York City all the way up to the Boston area of severe weather today, because that big storm trough is moving through there. But again, here in the southern plains, if you look carefully, you can kind of see the ridging pattern, right? Where the jet stream goes up and kind of looks like a buckle, right? Or kind of a backwards horseshoe. That's an area of high pressure, ridge that builds up. That's the calmer weather I was talking about. Whenever you're looking at this 550 millibar chart, mid-levels of the atmosphere chart, anytime you see a ridge, just automatically think calm weather, quiet weather, whatever season you're in, get a little bit warmer, a little bit cooler, and again, simply put, just not a lot of active weather. So that's going to be in charge of our weather really through the weekend, and we have a slow warming trend through the weekend as well. But as we get into next week, you can kind of almost begin to see the troughing pattern out on the West Coast beginning to develop. And really, as we get into the weekend, as we go through next week, it's going to become a little more pronounced out there, right? It's what we call a long wave trough pattern developing, and slowly but surely that's going to be tracking off to the east towards the Great Plains, and at some point, whether it's 8 days, 10 days, 12 days on down the road, it's going to be arriving, and when it does arrive, it's going to bring the opportunity of some active weather. Again, I'll show you that coming up momentarily. Otherwise, let's quickly take a look at the risk of severe weather today. It's pretty quiet around the nation. You can see up in the Northeast, up around New York, Boston area. That's where we do have a slight risk of severe weather. And by the way, there is a very low end tornado probability up there. Otherwise, wind basically being the primary concern. Some gusty storms not impossible up there. Taking a look at the day 2 risk. Again, general thunderstorms where you're seeing the light green, no real risk of any organized severe weather. Again, just general thunderstorms. And then as we take a look at this is day number 3. Also, no risk of organized severe weather. We're just talking about general thunderstorms. So this time of year, as we begin to head into fall, the jet stream becomes a little more active. Typically, this time of year is when we do begin to see that opportunity of severe weather come back into the forecast. If you're new here in North Texas, we also have a secondary severe weather season as well in the fall. So something to definitely stay plugged into. Quick check of the tropics. I tell you what, we're watching out here in the Atlantic. This wave number 1, the probability of formation has actually gone up, and the way it looks right now over the next 5 days, it's a 40% probability, up from 20% yesterday. The newest data coming in from the European model is showing there may be some type of development over in the Caribbean, and then simply put, it's going to lift off to the north. While we're talking about the tropics, let me just go and pull up the European model, and I'll run you through this. Then we'll get back to our local North Texas forecast coming up here momentarily. But this is what I want to do. Let's go and take a look at this. And again, this is the Euro model. And this is looking out into the tropical Atlantic. We'll let it load up. And again, that first wave, and if you can see the cursor, I know it's a little hard to see, that's the wave right there that I'm kind of highlighting. And this is the very newest run that just came in. And oh man, you know what? Look at that. It's not very bullish anymore compared to the morning run and yesterday's run. You can still see it over there in the Caribbean. Let's watch this carefully. There's 7, 8, 10 days on down the road. And it's backed off almost completely, right? So yesterday and even the run before that, it tried to develop something. It still curved it off into the northern Atlantic, didn't really do anything. The American model was not bullish on this whatsoever, but the latest run, you see it right there of the Euro. Simply put, just not doing anything with it now either. So outside of that, in the tropics, going out about 10 days, you see one more wave coming off the coast of Africa. And so that looks, again, pretty well organized coming off the coast. Off the coast of Africa this time of year, it's what we call our main development zone, and that's the area we watch for activity. This has been an unusually quiet season because of a lot of sinking air across the main basin of the Atlantic. We just really have not been able to get tropical development to go, which is good. But again, even that latest possibility there, again, simply put, just does not look favorable anymore. Our next storm, by the way, the name would be Fiona. If we're able to get another storm, we're just past peak season, but we're still in high probability mode, right? Where a lot of this activity still has a high probability this time of year to develop. But again, simply put, we're just not seeing it. Okay, what I want to do, I want to come back now quickly. This is obviously, we're looking at the North America region here, the continental United States and North America region. This is still that 550 millibar chart, right, where we're looking for ridges or dips in the jet stream. This is still the European model taking us out about 10 days. Again, just seeing what the general pattern is going to be, okay? So as we go forward in time, there's the ridge, right? You can see it in pretty firm control here in the southern plains. Still watching that troughing pattern out to the west. That's going to be our next real weather player. And there it is. You can see it only getting deeper out in the west coast, but notice the ridge continues basically in control of our weather here in the southern plains. But here we go. So that's about 8, 9 days on down the road. You can see that storm system. I know it's a little hard to see, but you can see that coloring of green and a little bit of red. That's an area of vorticity. That's a jet stream storm system. And again, between 8 and 10 days on down the road, it does eject out into the Great Plains. It's taking more of a northerly track up through the central plains, but even here in North Texas, that should push a cold front down into our area. And as that happens, it may offer us an opportunity of some rain and storms. Let's look at this. This is the newest data. I haven't seen this run. This data comes in just about every 12 hours or so. And so this is the very latest stuff coming in right now. So we'll go and take a quick peek at this. And what we're looking at here now, this is the 850 millibar chart. This is right off the surface. This time of year, and really all throughout the year, but especially this time of year, you really like to look at this because it will show you the change of air mass, right? At the surface, sometimes that data can be a little more cluttered. You don't always get a great presentation unless you just have a blue northern front coming down, right? But this really shows an opportunity of change of air mass. And so as we roll through this, again, we're going to go pretty fast out to about 8 days because we're watching for that Pacific storm system coming in. And you can see that area of green. That is a cold front. And by about day 10, it's approaching North Texas, but it's stalling just to our west. The data only goes out 10 days, so from there we're kind of having to extrapolate. Most likely in about 11 or 12 days, as we've been talking about, that front should be moving in, and as that happens, it should give us an opportunity of some rain and storms. So quickly, I'm going to show you just across the U.S. the opportunity of rain. This will be over the next 10 days, mainly with that front, right? We're mainly watching that next opportunity of a frontal system. And as I roll this into motion, you can see the front. Take a look at that. From the Great Lakes region all the way back down into the high plains, you can see where the front is, the opportunity of rain, about 8, 9, 10 days. The front kind of stalls. The rain opportunity for the most part stays there. So now we'll take a look at our region. Again, this is still from the European model. We'll roll you out over the next 10 days. We're mostly dry. There could be a little bit of tropical moisture, a little bit of sea breeze activity. That's going to be by late weekend. Right now, we're going to keep our forecast dry. Down along the coastal plains, down around Houston, Corpus, could be a little activity down there. Okay, so here we go. This is about 9 days on down the road. That's going to be by the following Thursday. There it is, the opportunity of rain and storms developing near the front and moving through. So again, in about 9, 10, 11 days down the road, like we've been saying, the forecast is still holding. This is, when you're looking out that far, this is not the high res data, right? So from this data, this is more of what we call a global model, right? So the resolution is not as good. What it's forecasting for North Texas, it's also forecasting for Antarctica, right? This model forecasts for the entire world, and whenever we begin to talk about the high-res data, that's typically a model that's only forecasting for the continental United States, right? It's a very small area that it forecasts for, and it's able to give you very high resolution data. This situation, we're just kind of taking away signals, right? This is not a spot on deal, but the signal from the model is saying, hey, most likely there's going to be a front. Hey, most likely there's going to be some precipitation around. This is a broad brush, and don't necessarily narrow it down quite yet, if that makes sense. From there, let me just go to rainfall totals. And I don't want to talk too fast. I don't want to go too fast, but again, we're trying to keep these, we've already been on for about 12 minutes here. We're trying to keep these around 10 to 15 minutes. So again, we just don't take up too much of your time on these. Over 10 days, you can see we're essentially dry, and there it is by day 8, 9, and 10. There's the opportunity of rain building in. But even before then, you can see down along the coastal plains, even back up in Oklahoma, up into our Texas Panhandle, that front for several days before we have any effects of it whatsoever, it will give locations to our north and to our northwest opportunities of rain. So that's definitely something we'll be tracking, because keep in mind, some of that activity, even though the data now is not showing it, could always make a run a little bit further to the south. Okay, one last thing I want to do. This is the high-res data. We'll take a quick peek at this, and this is going to be just for the southern plains. This is what we call the HRR model. This is the high-resolution rapid refresh, HRRR, so we call it the HRR model, and as an acronym for it. And so we'll just run you out over the next 48 hours. And this is truly what you can call future radar, right? When we're on air, I use this model some. There's one other model that I like to use as well, and it gives you kind of a future radar presentation. So again, as I roll this over the next 48 hours, North Texas, we're completely dry. There is moisture from what's left over from Tropical Cyclone K that came on the southwestern part of the United States, and some of that's even going to make it to the high plains, West Texas, our Texas Panhandle, maybe even to the big country, but then it basically dries up before it makes it into North Texas. So even locations to our west, over the next 48 hours, there will be some rain chances out there. Again, the Permian Basin, the Texas Panhandle, and again, possibly even the big country. But again, simply put, here in North Texas, we're just not going to see any of it whatsoever. So I want to look at the raw data here next, and this is going to be the European model. temperatures are there in the green and the blue, right? Blue is high temperatures, green are low temperatures, and then just below it, the other little chart is showing potential precipitation. So again, the Euro basically keeping us dry up until about day 9, day 10. You can see temperatures in the lower 90s, but as that ridge continues to hang out in the area, again, sinking area of high pressure, the ridge, we blend up into the mid 90s. So again, we do have a warming trend. Keep in mind, a typical high this time of year beginning today is only 89 now in DFW. So temperatures are beginning to run, 6, 7, potentially even 8 degrees above normal. So it's definitely going to be what you could call fairly warm. And then, so that's the European data is what we just looked at. That was most of the raw data that we looked at. But now what I've switched over to, this is what we call the blend of models, and this is an output from the National Weather Service. They take all of the different models, they weight them differently on how well they typically perform, and it spits out this data. So this is a blend of everything. This is truly typically what I forecast off of. I look at this, I may for some reason blend it a little bit with the European data, but typically this is what I use. And so again, you can see for tomorrow, Wednesday, right around 91, 90 on Thursday, and then this also agrees by really late weekend and early next week. We're back in the mid 90s. We're going to be hot early next week, and then as that potential next front arrives, that potential storm trough, again in about 9 or 10 days, there it is. You can see the temperatures begin to trend down into the lower 90s. So everything we just kind of looked at through the data, kind of the final piece of this, everything kind of agrees with what we were just talking about. So like I mentioned, I know we had to go through this kind of fast. Like I mentioned, we're going on 16 minutes now. We're trying to condense this and keep this as short as possible. That way, again, we don't bore anybody as we're going through this. The one thing I do want to remind you is if you have not downloaded our free Weather Tracker TV mobile app, be sure to do that. It has our live channel on it, also live radar, my updated 12-day, all those kind of things. It's always available in your iOS store, also in the Google Play Store as well. Otherwise, again, thanks for watching the video. Be sure to give us a like. Again, if you like this video, if you like the content, leave us a comment. We'll be sure to look at it as well. Again, if you're on YouTube or watching it on Facebook, either or, again, give us a like, give us a comment. And again, if there's a question even we need to answer tomorrow, we'll try and do that as well. So again, otherwise, thanks for watching the weather model discussion. Have a great Tuesday. And again, we'll do this again tomorrow, Wednesday.